I learned in a place called Shar HaTorah in Queens.
In Queens.
In Queens, and Rosh Yeshiva was named Zelig Epstein. Zelig Epstein, he's no longer with us. He was there, I think, in 2009. In any case, so when but he was said to be like the last Rosh Yeshiva from Europe, the last one.
What's his name?
Epstein, or Zelig Epstein.
Oh, okay.
I got one of the things that he was great. One of the best things about him was he used to get the New York Times. One of the best, not the best things, but I got a big kick out of it. He got the New York Times delivered to his office doorstep every day. I like that very much. In any case, so he was the last of a breed. In any case, so when he talked to you, like he didn't move his neck. Like his neck was like locked in place, like really locked in place. So I asked his son, Rav Kalman, I've seen like what's the matter with his neck. So he told me. I hope he told me. I guess maybe it blurred my mind. But what I recall is that when Rav Zelig was a kid, he learned in Grodno because things Rav Shimon Shkop's grandson he was. And he learned in Grodno there in Lithuania or whatever, Belarus, wherever it is now. And there was like one of these things. I think like some parade came through town, like that. And the Bacham like heard all the noise. They were like, looking to see what was going on. So he thought to himself that people are easily distracted. They crane their neck, look what's going on, and distract them. So he is gonna take on himself. These are my words. Like you see by Moshe Rabbeinu at the snap, where he says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Oh, I'm now going to look." The pasuk says, "I'm now going to look at this." He noticed this weird snap phenomenon, and then he said, "I'm made a conscious decision. I'm going to check it out." Didn't just get distracted. That's my input here. But anyways, so I heard the stories that Rav Zelig said he's not just going to crane his neck and look at stuff and be easily distracted. He's going to resolve either he's giving something his full attention or none at all. And from then on, as the story goes, he never moved his neck anymore. If he talks to you, he gave you your full, undivided attention. He would turn his body full. He would not be distracted. It was like laser beam focus. And it's he did not move. It's not like he didn't move his neck. It just was very. It was just strange. And I already told you that the klal I said early on was Hashem wants people to be normal, and I don't think that's the recipe for everybody. But it worked for him. That's for sure. He became one of the super big Gedolei Hador, and he was anyway, so that was it. Didn't move his neck, didn't want to be wishy-washy. Either gave you your full attention or nothing.
Black or white.
So that's it. It was like laser beam focus. In any case, so we'll get the circus here this morning. I'm sure.
I think Rabbi Padowitz said that.
Is that Anyway, so rolling on Daf, we're at the very, very bottom of Daf Daled base. Daf base was Daf base was a house in which there's an ani eating his bread and salt at night. On his head stands a Kohen saying Kriya Shema. Daf Gimel with 3 camels in a ruin. The first camel carrying a lion and a dove. The second camel Eliyahu Navi. The third camel carrying David Melech. And Daf Daled was a door that spanned from Geula, the neighbor Geula, to the Kotel, and standing upon it is David Melech with a goofy fake face, like Chassid. Purim costume, like a Chassid. Yes, that's it. That didn't take very long, did it? So, so now we're holding on Daf Daled on the base at the bottom. We said a lot yesterday, but actually covered very little. We only covered one mimer which had no connection to our sugya. Really, it was just another memra in the name of Amr Lazar Baravina. That's proper girsa for the first time. And he had said that Michal is greater than Gabriel because he comes in 1 flap instead of 2. And Abrias had said when it comes to Eliyahu Navi, it takes 4 stops. I don't know what that means, to be honest. And the Malach HaMavos comes in 8. And I said in the there that there are 8 ways a person could die. And so, anyways, that was yesterday. That's some pertinent question. Then, we're back to our topic here. So, the truth is,
which is
good. Right, so the truth is, it's a new topic altogether, like a new paragraph, new page in the mental page. We're going to discuss here the mitzvah of Kriya Shema Lamita, as the mitzvah of saying Kriya Shema before you go to bed at night. I'll call it a mitzvah only because the Gemara calls it a mitzvah, so the Gemara calls it a mitzvah, I'll call it a mitzvah. But it's not one of the Tariq mitzvahs, and this is the point I want to be madgish, I want to emphasize here. We're not talking about the fulfillment of the mitzvah of b'shach b'cha. I've emphasized, probably to a fault, that b'shach b'cha means that Kriya Shema you say in the evening, and I emphasize it's not an astronomical cue or phenomenon, but rather a social cue when people go to bed, and that's what arbitrates when the times are for Kriya Shema is bedtime. But as you well know, people will say Kriya Shema properly at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whatever it is during the year, or 5 o'clock, and then they'll go on with the day for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, and there's nothing wrong with that. So b'shach, and in fact, just the opposite, if you're planning on going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, you are over an Isser you're over a Durabanan by saying Kriya Shema past Chatzos. So you must say Kriya Shema, and we said, the Shulchan Aruch says Achila, you should say it right away, it says, and B'diavad you can't eat anyways, the Suda, as a Shabur Paskin, you can't start a meal in a little bit before saying Kriya Shema. So there is an issue of saying Kriya Shema by Seis Kochavim, because that's bedtime, at least in the Mishnah period, and that's how it was Kavua, but it's not connected to going to bed per se. It could be 6 hours before bedtime. Don't mix the two. There's a separate, unrelated, not directly related Indian, besides for the mitzvah of saying Kriya Shema. I should point out, by the way, just as an aside, it's worth pointing out, some Monei HaMitzvah, some people count the number of mitzvahs, count the mitzvah of Kriya Shema as 2 mitzvahs, one for the morning, one for the night. The Rambam counted as a single mitzvah, and I think that's how we're used to thinking of it as a single mitzvah. But there are those who count it actually as 2 mitzvahs, one morning, one night. Either way, whether it's 1 or 2 of the Taryag mitzvahs, the Kriya Shema Lamita is not one of the Taryag mitzvahs. It's its own separate inyan of saying Kriya Shema when you go to bed. It, as we'll see in our sugya, it serves as a shmira, as a protection for various sorts of things. That's what we're going to see over here.
Is that why people say it when they're about to be nifter?
It's another inyan. There's another inyan that the last word in the lips should be echad, so to speak. Echad, so you should be like, die with being miyach and shemayim. That's another inyan. An important thing to keep in mind. That is the last thing one should say, if possible.
Rashi seemed to hold more.
So now.
Yeah.
So that nukudah period, that's a discussion. And as you're reminded of it, my grandfather's great uncle. Yeah. So he said before my time, as you can imagine. In any case, he told the story that he was haunted his whole life. He was in Germany, and they fought in World War I on the side of the Germans against the French, and he, at some point in the trenches, stuck his bayonet into a French soldier, who then screamed out Shema Yisrael before he died, and he said the story is he never really got over that episode. He had nightmares till the day he died of killing this Jew on the other side of the trench. In any case, But the point I was saying was that Kriya Shema Lamita is like a new story, unrelated to the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. Don't mix them up. So we're talking about that now. Now, the lines can get blurred in certain ways. I'll tell you one of the ways. One of the ways, let's do it it's a Gemara share according to Rashi. Rashi asks in the very beginning, in the base of an olive, it might be the very first Rashi in the Gemara. Not quite the first, but it's there. It's near it's the beginning. So, in any case, Rashi over there says, and I mentioned this to you before, he said, wait a second. Everyone's saying Marav before Tzeis comes out, and they are saying Shema then, so they're not Yoti Shema because it's not yet Tzeis Kochavim. So he says that's okay. They'll say it when they go to bed at night, and they'll be Yoti Kriya Shema then. So the line can be blurred, because you could have in mind to be Yoti your mitzvah Kriya Shema with your bedtime Kriya Shema. So you could sort of be killing 2 birds with 1 stone, if you know what I mean.
You have to be in mind. It has to be in mind.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Whatever, I'm not getting into that now. I don't want to get into the mitzvah streets of Kavana and blah, 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 blah. Yes, but anyways, all of that aside, yes, Lachat you definitely have in mind your flame mitzvah Kriya Shema. The point is that you could be doing 2 things simultaneously. You could be getting the value of saying Kriya Shema before going to sleep and having the benefits of it provides a protection and so on, as we'll see right now, and also could tick the box of being able to your mitzvah Kriya Shema, because you said it's the daven marv early before, whatever it is. But don't mix those 2. It's like, without opening a new can of worms, you have to clarify the halachas. I'm sure if you ever learned the very beginning of Shulchan Aruch, you have to clarify your hand washing is for all sorts of different reasons. You have to clarify that just because you maybe wash your hands once and sort of kill 3 birds with 1 stone, But there's a hand washing that has to do with ruach ra, and there's a hand washing that has to do with preparing yourself for tefillah, and there's a hand washing that has to keep your hands clean before you say, if you have dirt on your hands or whatever, or you have to remove that soil, clean your hands before you say, Dvar Kedusha. So, but they're three totally unrelated things. If you know what I'm talking about, yes, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but the point is, like you have to, in Landus, you have to compartmentalize these things, they're unrelated. They just happen to be happening simultaneously, perhaps, with one hand washing. Same too with Kriya Shema Lamita. It could be, if you daven early, then when you say Kriya Shema Lamita, you can be Yotzi or Mitzvah, but let's assume, don't mix those up. For our purposes here, we're assuming that you've said Kriya Shema at Seis, at Marav, and now 5 hours later, or whatever, you're going to bed. And again, on your pillow, you're going to say Kriya Shema Lamita again. For other reasons, besides because of the mitzvah of Uvashach. Okay? Good? Yeah, I'm sure it's perfectly clear before you know. So, here it says, we're on the very second to last line 44 of Daf Dalet of the base. It says, Amr Yeshua ben Levi, Afal Pisha Kara Adam Kriya Shema B'Beisa Knesses. So let's assume that means Andrew's Yotzi, the mitzvah of Kriya Shema of Uvashach Lecha. Mitzvah, he has an additional mitzvah, Likroso al Mitaso, to read it again, meaning like let's call it for a third time, so to speak. Alright, Shachris, Marav, and now a third time on his bed. This is the third mitzvah. Amar Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, Mikra, like where do you see in a verse a suggestion that there's some justification or rationale for saying Kriya Shema Lamita? Because the pasuk says, this is the pasuk in Tehillim, so we're not talking about a mitzvah of the Raisa here. We're talking about that it's an allusion from the pasuk. The pasuk says, Rigzu va'al techateu. Rogez is to get angry, like to fight, to get agitated, something like that. So Rigzu va'al techateu, like get worked up and don't sin. Imru bilvavachem, say it in your heart, I'm translating literally here. Al mishkavachem, on your bed. V'domu, and be silent. Sela, whatever Sela means. So the drasha here is, the literal translation again is, agitate and yourself, and agitate and don't come to sin. Don't sin. Say it in your hearts, on your beds, and be silent. Sela. So the drasha here is that we're saying Imru bilvavachem, say bilvavachem, and remember it's the pasuk. The pasuk in Kriya Shema says that it should be al levavecha, on your heart, is a reference that's part of the Kriya Shema. So the drasha is say the levavecha pasuk, so to speak, al mishkavchem, on your bed, v'domu, and then be silent as you're going to sleep. So that is the drasha, that the pasuk, not literal meaning the pasuk, but the pasuk in Tehillim is alluding to the fact that there's a mitzvah from before that one should say Bilavavchem Kriya Shema al Mishkavchem on his bed, v'domu, and be silent because he goes to sleep. Period. And the truth is, that's the halachas. Like we could almost stop there and say halacha l'maisa. Everything else is like we'll discuss it. We're not done. The whole day we'll be talking about Kriya Shema Lamita. But in terms of the halacha, this halachic point has been made already. There's such a mitzvah. It's pasuk in Shulchan Aruch. It's in Reish Lamed Tes. The second to last semen and base in Shabura, that a person should say Kriya Shema Lamita, as well as other psukim too, as I'm sure you know. But in any case, the Kriya Shema comes first. Now, really lechatchila, all you need to do is say the first parsha of Kriya Shema, or the first paragraph of Kriya Shema, I'll call it, like Shema and Va'afta, and that would be sufficient for these purposes here, because you're not being Yotzi Mitzvah of Kriya Shema, you're just saying this Al Levacha, and maybe you say the first two parshas, maybe because Levacha is mentioned twice. But there's no mitzvah of Kriya Shema per se, so probably the first parsha is enough, and that's probably what you do say. The Mishnah Berurah does say, period, because you're not Yotzi Mitzvah of Kriya Shema. It's nothing to do with Kriya Shema, it's got to do with mentioning this. If you mention this, the Yichud Hashem, and you're not coming to say it, and you say Al Levacha on your mishkav, on your bed, and you're done.
But you open the shir that if you davened early, then you
okay,
want...
so right, correct. So I'll take questions at the end. Hold to the end questions, or make a note. Make a note so you don't forget. I don't want you to forget the question, but I don't want to. I'll go back at the end. But it's a good question. But I don't want to lose the train of thought here. So really, you don't have to say more than the first parsha because you're Yotzi from before, from Marv. Indeed, if you can daven Marv, you have to say all three parshas. That's an important point. If you didn't daven Marv in time, you really have to say all three parshas but only two are because of Kriya Shema and one is because of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Not for now, for now. But in any case, we're assuming, I said in our discussion today, that we've already said Kriya Shema and Mariv, and we're Yotzi. And there's no mitzvah d'oraisa on our plate here. There's just the Durban, so the Durban and the Chorah would just be the first parsha, will be enough. Nevertheless, the Mishnah Berurah says, the Mishnah Berurah, not the Mechaber, the Mishnah Berurah says a person ought to say all three parshios anyways. He says because we have a tradition that a person has Ramach Ivarim. Ramach says that's like 248. This. Oh, I forgot to record again today. Ramach, understand this is 200, this is 40, this is 8. So there's a tradition that a person has 248 Ramach Ivarim, limbs. Yeah, yes, correct, Avram. And the Kriya Shema has 248 words, and the saying of the Kriya Shema has the capacity to sort of be a shmir on you, to be shomer all 248 of your limbs. If you count words in Kriya Shema, you will discover there are only 245 words in those 3 paragraphs, which is why, if you're saying it on your bed at night, you will be, what's the word, you'll you'll precede your, but in any case, you'll preface, that's a better word, you'll preface your say of Kriya Shema with the phrase Kel Melech Ne'aman, God is a trustworthy king, because those 3 words add up plus 245 to 248. In Mariv, if you're done with a minyan, so then you don't say Kel Melech Ne'aman, what you do is you have in mind the repetition of Hashem Lokechem Emes, when the Chazor Shas happens, and those 3 words, you're supposed to listen to them say it. You're supposed to actually, if you're in the middle, you can be quiet, listen to them, and have in mind it's 245 of the Shema plus the 3 of the Hashem Lokechem Emes. That adds up to 248. That's what's going on with the repetition of Hashem Lokechem Emes. That's the way to do it. If you're davening the Yechidus, there's a machlokas poskim how to deal with it. Not the Mishnah Berurah comes out saying not to say Kel Melech Ne'aman. He has a more complicated story of having kavanah with the vavs. Not for now. Too much for now. But anyway, when we'll get there, we'll discuss it. Others say just say Kel Melech Ne'aman and be done with it, and every 3 plus 245. In any case, the halacha, the Mishnah Berurah paskins, ideally a person should say the whole 3 paragraphs of Kriya Shema before going to bed, because the power of Kriya Shema is to be a shmir on you. We'll see it's shomer from you in terms of bad thoughts, it's shomer from you in terms of mazikin, and so therefore, when a full shmira, say all the Kriya Shema 3 paragraphs, including Kel Melech Ne'aman, and get the full body protection of Kriya Shema. That's the halacha. That's the end of that. It's back here in the Gemara, the last 3 words on the daf, on the daf dalet, says Amr of Nachman, Im Talmud Chacham hu, if the person who's going to bed is a Talmud Chacham, which means that he's presumed to be like doing review on his Mishnayos all the time, right? That's what is going on in his head. He's actively doing that. So therefore, that's considered to be a shmira enough. Like his learning is a shmira all to itself, and therefore, ein tzarich, he need not say Kriya Shema Lamita, because he has his own shmira of learning till he falls asleep at night. When the dust settles, it comes out. We don't have Talmud Chacham like that anymore today, and so it's not. This has no halachic implication. This is it. But in any case, but the thinking is that in theory, the learning, the non-stop learning of a Talmud Chacham would be a bimkom, the shmir of the Shema. Nevertheless, Amar Abaye answers, even if the guy is a Talmud Chacham, still miboyle lemeimar chad psuka derachmi. He still has to say 1 verse of Rachamim, as a bakasha of Rachamim, presumably, a request for mercy. He doesn't need the shmira, the protection that Kriya Shema Lamita affords, but he needs to say some basic, it's called akla prayer for Hashem to protect him. Kagam, for example, this is another pasuk from Tehillim, B'yadcha avkid ruchi, I deposit, entrust my soul, my ruach, my spirit into your hand. Padisa osi, like from word podea to like redeem or save, like you should save me. Hashem kel emes, Hashem the true God. So that pasuk is a pasuk. I'm sure it's familiar also. It's certainly familiar to all of us. That at least 1 line of request one pasuk, is a run of request of shmira, of entrusting yourself to Hashem when you go to sleep is required. That's a bias extra line there. And I guess others would work just fine, but of course, as the Ben Yoyar or Ben Ayahu, I forgot which one, same person, two books, the Ben Shchai, Apple horses, he points out that this is a great pasuk to say because, anyways, if you're trusting Hashem with your life, your ruach, for sure you trust Him with your money, etc. So the point is, as an expression of having faith in Hashem, no better pasuk than this one, trusting your life to Hashem. So that's that. Rabbi says even but for the rest of us, and everyone who's manazeh, we all say Krishna Lamita, at least one paragraph, and all 3 paragraphs going to the Mishabura for that extra protection.
We don't say that pasuk. No.
We say a whole bunch of psukim, other psukim of Rav.
Yeah, but not that.
I think it's built in because of the
Say it
Don Olam. So then the Don Olam, you have
Okay.
that built in there like that. Yeah, but indeed it's not a whole pasuk; it's a half pasuk. Okay. So yeah, now back to this. So we're at the 2 dots here at line 4. Again, I marked my Gemara like the parentheses. So this is just parenthetical comments. We're on the topic of Krishna Lamita. We're going to take a total excursus, which has nothing to do with that at all. It's just that since we had this pasuk of Rugzav al Techatu, so we're going to darshan that pasuk, but we're not. I guess it's only tangentially related to Krishna Lamita, but the point is, like, it's a standalone thought, which is telling you how to fight the Yetzer Hara, how to do battle with your, if you're inclined to do something you shouldn't be doing, how to wage that psychological war to come out without having done the Aveira. So that's based on this pasuk. We're darting the pasuk. So it says, Amr Levi Bar Chama, Amr Shimon ben Lakish. La'olam. Let me say the whole thing first, then we'll take it apart piece by piece. La'olam, always. Yargiz Adam Yetzer Tov al Yetzer Hara. A person should, like, the same word there is rogez, like, to set into conflict, battle directly. Yargiz, like, agitate, something like that. A person should set, like the dog is on his Yetzer Tov, al Yetzer Hara, to do directly confront the Yetzer Hara. In other words, if a person has a desire to do something wrong, he should just, dig his toenails in the ground and say, and work on not eating an ice cream after eating his, meat, whatever the story is. Shnei, as the pasuk says, Rigzu v'al techatu. That's the Radarshim. We're going to break up this pasuk into 4 shlavim here, and the first part of it is just Rigzu. If you get agitated, agitate yourself and spur yourself on, and you won't come to sin. That's like step 1. Do direct battle, and that, since it's la'olam, suggests that's the primary, proper, regular way. I'll come back to la'olam in a second. Im nitzchu. No, I was going to say it now. The la'olam here, everyone jumps on this la'olam. La'olam means always. So what's it come like? What is that coming to add? So besides what I just told you, which is that this is the normal way of doing things, that you should have direct conflict, so to speak, and not be afraid of direct conflict, and strengthen yourself in fighting the Yetzer Hara. It also comes to add lots of different mafarshim what it comes to add. So some speak out that it comes to add even in mitzvahs asa, not just a lo sasa. Like those kinds of, these lo is an extra word there. So there's different questions of what it comes to add, and they add different kinds of things you might have otherwise thought didn't come to include. The Graz shot, I think is worth mentioning, is that a person will always have to fight with his Yetzer Hara, and will always be, having to do battle, because that's how it goes. The greater a person is, the greater his Yetzer Hara becomes. So the Olam means, like, this is never over. The battle never ends. Either way, so that's step 1. If you have a conflict, if you're conflicted to do something you shouldn't be doing, so then, or if Olam is to be added, let's say you're conflicted to not something you should be doing, so then just, tell yourself, fight. Have that internal struggle. Now, im nitzchu, if you're successful, you're victorious in that battle, that's a victory. So then mutov, that's great. Fantastic.
Cool.
V'im lav, if, on the other hand, you didn't succeed, and you still, just by trying to, with discipline and, self-incitement alone, you can't bring yourself to do what you have to do, then yasuk b'Torah. So plan B is to throw yourself headlong into learning Torah. Shnei Mar, as the pasuk says, imru b'levavachem. So, I think the way that Rashi learns, right? No, not Rashi. So there's 2, I guess, some understand that the drush is on the imru, like speak it out, speaking words of Torah to your heart, and some see the word b'levavchem, like, because that pasuk in Shema starts talking about having the words of Torah on your heart, and so therefore the levavchem is referencing Torah. Either way, the drasha here is saying imru b'levavchem is you should learn Torah, and that will, I guess, purge you of your desire to do what you should be doing. It's funny here that, so it says, if that works, so then great. In love, if that still doesn't work, and after sitting and learning you still are in the grips of that desire to the Avera, Yikra Kriya Shema. So plan C is to say Kriya Shema. Shneimar, the pasuk says, Al Mishkavachem. Right, that's the third part of the pasuk, and that's a reference to the Shchiva of bedtime, and the Meforshim speak out how a person is very much prone to improper thoughts, etc. at bedtime, and therefore that the Kriya Shema is a shmira on that. That will be our tenuous connection to this in Kriya Shema Lamita, but that's not the point of the memory. In any case, so if step 1 was just do direct battle, step 2 was learn Torah, step 3 was say Kriya Shema. So all the Meforshim, many Meforshim, are bothered by, like, how could you need a step 3? Because after step 2 of learning Torah, that should for sure work. Because Chazal say, like Hashem created the Yetzer Hara, and He created the Torah to be its antidote, tavlin. Antidote. So that's true. If Chazal are true, they say that the Torah is enough to fight your Yetzer Hara, so then how could you need a plan C? Plan B is always going to be sufficient. So they basically answer that it Vilvavchem means you have to, like, your heart has to be full with the words of Torah. If you're totally into it, it's definitely going to work. But if you just, if you're not really into it, then it's not going to work, or it may not work. So the point was you have to be fully absorbed and be serious about your Torah learning. And if your heart is in it, if your heart is in it, it will work. But if you can't get your heart in it because you're too distracted by what you otherwise want to be doing, you're distracted, and therefore you have to go to plan C. Plan C is saying Kriya Shema. And when you say Kriya Shema, what are you doing? You're saying Yichud Hashem, there's nothing but Hashem, nothing else matters but Hashem. What could be relevant besides Hashem, and everything else can cause you trouble. And some focus on that it ends when you say Echad, end of the pasuk, you are supposed to think you're willing to die al Kiddush Hashem. So like if you're willing to die for that, like how could you do whatever the heck you were drawn to do? So that's like plan C. Plan C is say Shema. That's like that's a fail-safe that really remind you what you're living for, what's important, and you will be dissuaded from doing the same. But im nitzchu, if that works, then great. Muta. Vim lav, if still, after all 3 attempts, you're still not dissuaded, then yizkor lo yom hamisa. He should remind himself of the day of death, of his mortality. Shneimar b'domu sela, which means, and you'll be silent forever. Sela is the hardest translated word. It's an untranslatable word. In any case, so the ultimate silence that comes with death. So you remind yourself of that. Now, the Meforshim focus on this word lo. The word lo seems to be unnecessary. It could just be Yizkor Yom Hamisa. Remind yourself of death. What's the lo of it? Remind himself of his death, something like that.
On the Kriya Shema,
No.
Okay.
Yom Hamisa. So what's that lo coming to add? So I saw Chacham Musar and Visa Salon both make the same kind of point, which is that when you say, "Oh, I'm going to be dead," that doesn't. You're sort of impervious to that one. Like you don't really believe it. No one takes that so seriously. So to think one day I'll be dead in the ground doesn't really. It's like ducks back. It's so far from our basic psychology that we feel sort of it's not real. So therefore, you can't just say that, "Oh, I'm going to be dead." It has to be, you have to remind yourself of your particular. You have to envision yourself, so to speak, as being dead. Picture yourself in the ground with the worms eating your flesh and the arms having robbed off the body. Really, you have to really see yourself as being. Because already by Kriya Shema, you're saying I'm ready to die for Hashem. It's not that death is coming. That's that see yourself as ultimately being worm food, and you picture yourself as in the ground. That's very, very sobering, and that's the nuclear bomb, so to speak, where if you really envision yourself as being dead and then you're facing whatever to face, that will for sure dissuade you of whatever it was we're going to do. So that's the drush. The basic flow of the Gemara then is we have this pasuk which we darshaned, Imru Bilavavchem al Mishkavchem, Bedomu, say Bilavavchem, say Kriyashma al Mishkavchem on your bed, Bedomu, be silent. That was the source at the bottom of the last Amud for saying Kriyashma al Mita. Then the Gemara says, oh, speaking of that pasuk hides in it the secret to do battle with the Yetzer Hara, because it starts out by saying, Rugzu al Techatu, agitate yourself and don't come to sin. And then, if that doesn't work, Imru Bilavavchem, learn Torah. If that doesn't work, then al mishkavchem, that's a reference to the Kriyashma, and that still doesn't work, then v'dom musel, remind yourself that one day you will be really dead, and that will, your mortality will certainly wake you up to what's really important in life. I think everyone knows the very famous story of I forgot his first name. Nobel from the Nobel Prize. I forgot his first name. Alfred, that's right, thank you. Alfred Nobel, who developed, this is a very famous story that he was the one who developed dynamite. TNT was he was a chemist and he developed it, and he was a rich person, and then he died, they thought, and his obituary came out. You know the story? His obituary came out in the newspaper, and they said, Alfred Nobel, such and such a person, and thanks to him we have modern warfare, millions of people have died, all that kind of stuff. And that shook him up so much that his contribution to society, now that he's dead, what did he contribute? He contributed, warfare and misery. So he was motivated to do something good with his money, and that he founded the Nobel Prize. That's where it comes from. That's its origins. So that is a well-worn story about, if you think about what you would like to see on your gravestone, that will remind you what's important. But
very noble.
Yeah, very noble. So
That's a question.
Yeah.
How come we never skip to the last one, or by the time you get to the fourth
That's a great question.
thing to do, you already did there?
Excellent. So good. So everyone asked the question, listen, if you've got a nuclear bomb, so why don't you just pull it out? So there's two approaches. I think they're both really interesting. Some say that it for sure would work, but that's no way to live life. You can't, if you're constantly focused on your mortality and seeing yourself as worm food, that will have its own negative consequences of sort of lack of motivation to lots of things in this world and sort of being depressed, etc. So it's not appropriate, and I guess maybe counterproductive. So you don't whip out the nuclear warheads unless you're talking about do or die type scenario. So that's one approach, that it's not appropriate, not wise, and not right to be focused on to be so focused on your true mortality, and it'll have a counterproductive impact on you to do it when more than necessary. The other approach is that it only works because it's step 4 in the process. In other words, think of your day of death, there are lots of people who are well aware, I think, let's presume there are lots of people in this world who are well aware they're going to be worm food and yet live bad lives, because so what? I might as well, live fast and die young. But so this is a process. In other words, first realize what you really want is to do good. That's rigzu, fight with the Yetzer Tov. If that's not enough, then you'll force it's like accretive. You'll then the second layer of defense is Talmud Torah, which will be fortify you. If that's enough, then creation, which will fortify you further. And even if that doesn't work, but now that you have already focused on what you want out of life and sort of fortified yourself with Torah and focused on your life like Yichud Hashem, then we think, and I'm going to be dead anyways, and I have to give din b'cheshbon, and I'm headed up to then that altogether will be effective. But just skipping to the end won't work at all. That's the other approach. The two approaches: either it's just not good for you to think about dying all the time, which is a good advice.
And it couldn't be a reference to sleeping as 60th of death, that you're about to go to sleep.
I don't think so.
And you could die in your sleep.
Well, that was a previous thought. Well, that kind of thinking was the previous line of the Gemara. In other words, "Do musela be silent forever" is going to sleep, and therefore dangerous. Therefore, you have to have kibruchi and you have to say kriyashma for shmira. But this is its own. The way I'm learning the sugya, it's completely, utterly not related. Just sort of mention that pasuk. We'll bring this other thing up, and obviously it overlaps since you're mentioning Shema as part 3 of your plan C, so to speak. It's connecting, but that's not the point. That's not the point here. The point is that it's its own topic all to itself. That's all I want to learn. I'm going to hear someone not learning that way. That's not saying it over. And then finishing the thought, just repeating it just to make it clear. You don't skip to the last step either because it's not good for you psychologically to use that all the time to think about how you'll be dead. It'll depress you, you won't be active. Or alternatively, it only works because it's been a build-up, and then as the last step, it's the makbapatish overcoming it. Good. Period. I'll take questions now. Your question? Do you remember your question? Did I answer it in the meantime?
Basically, you said that the Mishnah Berurah says to say all three paragraphs.
Right. So okay. So the answer. So the question. Do you have the answer? Do you understand? You're still not clear. So I'll summarize again. That really you had to say 3 paragraphs at Mariv after Tzeis Chavim. Period. Then a new thing is you have to say Kriyash Malamita, which the Mishnah Berurah says say 3 paragraphs also. So, period. And if you indeed you daven Mariv early before it says, you can be Yotzi Kriyash Ma by saying Kriyash Malamita. That period. Is that clear? There is I should speak out. Maybe this is part of your question. Is that so? Why do you do that? Like, what's the big deal? Let's always daven Mariv early. Let's not worry about Kriyash Ma. So the answer is, besides the fact that you have this rabbinic stuff of Chachila saying it as early as possible and not eating until. There's also Kriyash Ma is meant to be said with its brachos, and by saying it early and not being yotzi Kriyash Ma because you said it before it says, you'll be yotzi on your bed. You won't be being yotzi in the surah that Chazal wanted, which is okay. Like Rashi is totally cool with it, right? But it's not like ideal. It's not ideal. That's all. It's not ideal. But it happened. There's nothing. No one's shaking his finger and saying you shouldn't daven early on, on take Shabbos and early on a Friday night in the summer, because then you'll be a bad boy and not be saying Kriyash Ma with the brachas. No one's saying that. Even though it's true, it's not ideal, but life isn't ideal. There's a reason why the halacha governs. Eating dinner at 9:30 with tired kids is also not ideal, and that might be a much less. The chinuch of your kids at 9:30 might be impossible, and therefore, between two not ideals, that's life. You're better off eating early and saying Kriyash Ma. What's the big deal? And I mentioned to you how I love. I don't know if I spoke it out in full. How Beis Tefillah in the summertime makes a Mariv at 9 o'clock. So you can do not just they pushed it because they should say Siras Omer with the minyan, but also a second big benefit is you get to say Kriyash Ma with the brachos, like in the proper time. So.
Now what Mishnah Berurah says is b'diavad that you are yotzi with Kriyash Ma. So should you say, first of all, is that a b'diavad? And secondly, should you say an additional time, because that one is really just yotzi.
B'diavad is a funny. So b'diavad, whenever we had that discussion equivocation the other day about how words can do things, and then since we think linguistically, it's very difficult for us to we're using words in more than one way. It becomes very difficult for us to think things through clearly. It's a well-known problem. So that's why, philosophy today has become linguistics, because it's all the way we think is linguistic. Very interesting. I would like to understand how deaf people think. I've tried to read up on it a little bit. I don't really understand it. How deaf people who've never heard speaking and therefore don't how they think. I'm not sure so some deaf people say they think. I've seen people say this that they think in sign language, which is really amazing. They know they speak American Sign Language, let's say ASL. So therefore they can say when you talk in your head, which sounds crazy to anybody who's why you talk to yourself. But they're signs to themselves. So that makes sense to me in a way. But those who don't know sign language or what, so how do they process information? I'm not sure. It's something probably very different than most of us. In any case, put that all aside for a second. So what I'm saying, the word b'diavad really means 2 different things, and because it's used with the same terms used in 2 totally different ways, I think it sometimes clouds our ability to think of the issue. Because b'diavad could mean, and literally means, after the fact, something like that. It's happened. B'diavad means it's now that it's happened, now that whatever happened. So, and now you're in a not ideal situation, but that's the situation. So now I have to deal with it. So b'diavad could mean that, or b'diavad could mean that's not the proper way to do it. But now that you did it, b'diavad, you're yotzi what you did. They're 2 different things. I'll say it again because that's hard to understand. B'diavad could mean what do I do now? Something bad has happened, and the answer is okay. B'diavad, now that the chicken soup fell in the milk, if it's only less than 1 part of 60, whatever it is, so it's okay. B'diavad. You can't do chila, b'diavad. It's okay. Something bad happened now. B'diavad. How you pick up the pieces of halachically. The other thing is no. B'diavad means that's a b'diavad way. That's a improper, ideal way to do things. But now that you've done it, it'll be okay. But b'diavad means what you're doing now is not proper. There's nothing wrong with if chicken soup spills in your milk, or maybe you think of milk dropping in chicken soup, and it's just a drop and it's kosher, you're totally allowed. There's no reason in the world not to eat chicken soup. Period. In fact, there are those who have very not nice things to say about those who don't eat chicken soup because there's mutter. Why aren't you eating it? Nothing wrong with it. It's a shame that milk fell in because you can't put milk in. But now that it happened, there's a new set of rules. The bidiyavad rules. The rules say go ahead and eat your chicken soup. Have a nice day. No problem. That's one kind of bidiyavad. Now that it's happened, what do you do? Other kind is what you said. Kriya without the brachas. That's terrible. But now that you're done, you're yelting. That's only a bidiyavad way of doing it. That wasn't the way to do it. I made that terrible to overstate the case. So two different things. Bidiyavad means like now that we're in a not ideal situation, how do you do it? Or what you did was not ideal, but you're still yelting. So. That's not different. So saying Kriya Shema Lamita, what I was saying is not and to daven taking Shabbos early for argument's sake and daven early, which people do. Now I think my impression is like people are pretty mocked to wait to say Mariv until it says. That's what people do with most of the world. That's my impression.
There's one minyan here that davens, for Shkia and after, so it's like after Shkia.
Right, Shkia. But I think that was very common in the old days, but it's become nowadays people have cars and electric lights and like people just and stopwatches and whatever. Now it's a dumb thing. But historically speaking, I think for much of Jewish history, you see through Rashi and in general, if you're an old timer, people just daven Mariv early, and so what? So like that's the way they did things, and then now b'di'evad, now that's what's happened. That's okay. Like, that's what people did. You're allowed. So now you say Kriya Shema Mita, and that's okay. You're not doing something b'di'evad. The b'di'evad happened, and that Mariv early as you were allowed to do. So now you're in the situation of say Kriya Shema Mita, say 3 paragraphs, and you're okay. Everything's cool. It's like even so to speak, loosely speaking, like the milk fell in chicken soup. So that's what happens, and how deal with it. The way you deal with it is that you say that you say Kriya Shema.
The emphasis changes from the early Mariv, which was the b'di'evad, to the saying Shema, which is so, like a lechatchila way of fixing it.
Right. So once it's happened, exactly. But lachatchila is to say Kriya Shema. That's actually codified. The very words. Lachatchila, the Mishnah, the Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber says lachatchila you should say Kriya Shema right at seis. So you didn't do that. So you're b'di'evad because you didn't do the ideal.
You blew it.
But okay, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. So to answer your question, if you said Kriya Shema early, because of whatever reason, because that's how it worked out in your day, that's okay. The halacha allows for that, and once it's allowed for that, you'll say Kriya Shema on your pillow, all 3 paragraphs, and that's fine and good. No need to say it twice.
Right, and you wouldn't need it.
You'd have once to cover the 2 verses of one stone. Yeah.
Say the brachas twice.
No brachas second time. No brachas.
You don't just say what twice?
Yeah. When you say Kriya Shema Lamita, even though you're doing Kriya Shema of the mitzvah of B'Shach B'cha and Kriya Shema of the mitzvah of Kriya Shema Shlomita, you could say the Kriya Shema verses only once for both. That's what you say.
48 words.
Yeah, that's 248 words. That's exactly right.
It's like at the meal on Friday night, and sometimes you daven early. Some people say at the table, they say 3 paragraphs of Shema.
Kriya Shema there at the table. So they want to back the lachatchila of as soon as the taste comes in, the clock.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, now what about when we just discussed the bracha, like, so now there's 2 minhagim. I remember when I
which bracha? Which Kriya Shema brachas?
When you, on the mita, when you say hamapil.
Oh, mapil. That's a question. So I don't know if. Let me say it out here for a minute, for a moment here. Yeah,
question. Okay, so we're saying that there's some minhagim, I don't know, beer bound sitter, I don't remember growing up, we used to have the bracha before Kriyat Shema, and in some siddurim here, you see that the bracha mapil is at the end. Whatever.
Right. Okay. So
is that the machlok between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yochanan?
Oh no. I'm not actually sure off the top of my head. Is there a Mishnah? I didn't Mishnah Halachic base. It was one handy. No, I just don't remember off the top of my head. Like, okay, I don't remember where Hamapil comes from. If it's in our, we'll do it later. But I'll just summarize it now since it's just one, I guess, for a moment. There's a bracha that Chazal Misaka, the person say a blessing on going to sleep called Hamapil. And it's also in Reish Lamed Tes. You know, there. I just don't really have. I want like the miracle. I want to see where it's sourced. Okay. I just don't remember where Hamapil is. Like it's where it's comes from. The makor for it is. But in any case, there's a mitzvah to say Hamapil. They are. One is much stricter than the other. What I mean by that is this: they make a hefsek between that and going to sleep. So in the Kriya Shema Lamita, you say Kriya Shema, and then let's say you can't fall asleep or you have to get up. I don't know, blah blah blah. Like it's like no big deal. Okay, it's like no big deal. Since the Hamapil bracha is supposed to go on going to sleep, because you're saying that we're going to sleep, So you're really supposed to be like, not talking about. Okay? I know all the kids will want to know, well, what if? Okay, so that's the video, what if? But don't worry about it. The surah is, say, Krishna Lamita, and then, like, it's supposed to be the last thing you do is you say, Hamapel, and go to sleep. So therefore, because of that, it stands to reason, to me and other poskim, say Hamapel last. But the truth is, since saying Kriya Shema anyways is, like, part of, where's an example? I don't know, many times you see, like, say in Abdullah, where the bracha of Megillah, where you make a bracha, and then, like, or the shofar is a better example. It was going to be a lot, as long as it's not considered a hesach hadas, you're talking about the topic, the bracha still is on the same topic. You're not worried about it. They break Priya Gafen and then you work, it's like one long thing. So the same thing there, we say Yamapil first, so then all these psukim and the Kriya Shema is all part of it, that's fine. So, like, do whatever you've been, I guess, for your father, whatever it is. But certainly, the emphasis on making a hefsek between saying it to go to sleep is much more intense on the bracha levatala of a mapil, for me it stands to reason you say mapil last. I think many people say, yeah, but the problem is, I never, like, I don't know if you can relate to this, I actually can't relate to this, but even though I'm blessed that I can fall asleep very quickly, but still, like, I don't think, it's rare that I've fallen asleep mid, Krishna Lamita. That doesn't happen to me. But if it happens to you, and I think a lot of people does happen to, so then it would make sense to say Mapil first, because you'll never get there. Okay, that's beyond the scope of our topic. But I didn't mention, you asked, and I answered because it's intertwined, the halacha, but we didn't mention Mapil. All we're talking about now, Krishna Lamita, and we just said so far, always, like, we had this side point about the strategy of fighting Yitzhara, but all we said in Krishna Lamita is that there's a mitzvah, that's a lashon mitzvah, there's a Krishna Lamita. It has some kind of shmir. We didn't say what the shmir is yet. We just said it's a mitzvah to do it. In the drush of Bilvavchem al Mishkavchem V'domo, and that's all we said so far. So now let's pick up again a little more, if we can, on line 10. So I close my parentheses after the words V'domo Sela, because like that was that point. Now back to our topic of Kriya Shema Lamita. Amr of Levi Bar Chama, Amr of Shimon ben Lakish. My dechsiv. Oh, sorry. Oh gosh. We're even worse. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're even going one step further in terms of off topic. In other words, what happened was we had on line 4, Amr of Levi Bar Chama, Amr of Lishlak, Shimon ben Lakish, such and such. So then, once we're talking about that, we'll say something else that Amr of Levi Bar Chama, Amr of Shimon ben Lakish said. So it's like a double off topic. So it's another off topic point here. In any case. So it's not about Kriya Shema yet. My dechsiv, what does it mean? So again, this is like totally unrelated. My dechsiv, what is the pasuk? But this is a very, by the way, this Gemara here is like a very famous, well-known, like important Gemara. The Gemara is going to say that Kol Torah Kul was given to Har Sinai. And this is the source for that, the Gemara that says it. My dechsiv, what does the pasuk in Shemos, this is the pasuk in Torah, mean when it says, it's repetitive, it says, Ve'ena lecha, I give to you es luchos ha'even, the stone tablets, Vaha Torah, and the Torah, Vaha Mitzvah, and the Mitzvah, Asher Kasavti, that I wrote, Lahorosam, to teach them. End quote. So we're in a darshan, each, it's called phrase or noun of that list, or whatever this phrase of that list, as a different portion of Torah. So we say like this, Luchos. By the way, I should know this, a different thing. The way I do it in my Gemara, for what it's worth, when we have a pasuk that we're chopping up and then darshaning, so I underline each ket, each little phrase of the pasuk. That's just so I keep track of what's happening. So in other words, for argument's sake, going back up on line 6, I underlined Rigzu Val Techatu. On line 7, I underlined Imru B'Levavchem, because we darshan that pasuk as we break it apart. I underlined Al Mishkavchem. On line 9, I underlined V'dom Musel on line 10. Now I have a new thing. I underlined Luchos on line 13. Luchos Elu Aseres Adibros. Hashem gave the 10 commandments, whatever you call them. Aseres Adibros. But the stone tablets there at Har Sinai. That's number 1. That's the first piece of the pasuk. Then the next piece of the pasuk, Torah, I underline. Zeh Mikra. That's like the Chumash, the 5 books. Usually Mikra, by the way, we refer to Tanakh, all 24 books, but it doesn't here. As you'll see in a moment.
What's the difference from that and Torah?
Torah, Zemikra, it's the same thing. Torah means the 5 books. Well, Torah can be a general term for all general Torah. So Torah here means the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. The Mitzvah, underline that. What's that referring to in the pasuk? Zu Mishnah, because that's where the codification of like what to do, right? The Torah's got a lot more than just what to do.
Right.
There's just what to do, line by line, so to speak. That's the Mishnah. Asher kasavti, that I wrote down. So Elu, I underline that. Elu neviim v'ksuvim. This is the Nach, the other books of the Tanakh, right? So those are the 8 neviim shomim, the 13 ksuvim that are 8 and 11, yes, sorry, that were written down later on, but they were given, whatever it means, already those principles, whatever it has to say for itself, already in Har Sinai. And before Shema asks, what's with the Asher Kasavti? Why should that I wrote down? Like, it's a little strange.
If it's Mishnah, it wasn't.
No, we're not Mishnah. Asher Kasavti is talking about the Nach.
Okay.
But like, it's still a little weird. Like, Elu Nevi'im V'Ksuvim. So those are the prophets and the writings. So like Nevi'im doesn't seem like written down.
Well, it's different than Torah Shabbat.
Yes, the Torah Shabbat. Those are the Nach. So as they speak out, they emphasize. Remember, I told you once. I mentioned in passing not long ago. There's a Gemara in Megillah, Daf Yadalah, that says that there were twice as many Nevi'im, the Jewish people, in the word Yosef Mitzrayim. That's 1.2 million prophets. I made a joke that like prophecy was a national sport in my Mishnah, which I sort of think is true. In any case, national pastime, I should say. In any case, so all that Nevuah stuff, those are prophecies, but they're not to be written down. They're private between you and Hashem, or Hashem had some temporary message, or totally message relevant to your life, but not something that was the Doros. But what's written down in the Navi, those are things that are meant to be relevant for generations onwards. Those Nevi'im, those 48 Nevi'im and 7 Nevi'ot, female prophetesses, that's what's written down. So Asher Kasavti, that was written down is referring to just those 48 and 7 like permanent Nevuahs that are relevant to the Doros for generations.
I'm sure that the Anshe Knesset Gdola, when they selected those, was with Ruach Kodesh. So.
Yeah, correct. I'm just saying, but there were another million Nevi'im lurking about what they heard or whatever wasn't written down. Asher Kasavti, that was written down. That's Nevi'im Ksuvim. We have those 19 books. And finally, Lahorosam, to teach them, something like that. Right? Like teach them. Underline that in my Gemara. Zeh Gemara, that's the Gemara. As we said in our Hagdama at the beginning, so Gemara isn't we don't mean the book in front of us here. We mean the understanding of the rationale behind the Mishnah. Look at Rashi, it's worth seeing this Rashi as we discussed it before. Zeh Gemara, so it's the first. The word, the Dibra Maschil, the Zeh Gemara phrase, is the last line 5 of Rashi on the right hand side, inside side, where it's the last of the big lines, Zeh Gemara. So Rashi says, what is Gemara? Svaras Tame and Mishnayos, the rationale of the reasons of the Mishnayos, right? Shemimenu, that from that rationale, from that understanding, Yotza Hora, that from that springs forth the Hora, how to paskin. Aval, he speaks out, this is Luke Rashi, it's a little, it's like a, what's the word, comments? You know, like a little, I forgot what I want also, but anyways, he has a little commentary on the side, like, you know, editorial comment, Rashi editorial comment. He says, Aval hamorim hora min ha-mishnah, like, because it's, the Horosam is a new thing from Gemara. But if you don't have the Gemara part, you just have the Mishnah, even though that's the mitzvah, what to do. If a person is moreh halacha, moreh hora, he tells what to do from the Mishnayos alone. Nikru, those guys, they just rule from what they've memorized, whatever it is. They're called Mavli ha'olam, people who destroy the world, as it says in the Sota and Daf Chopes. So Rashi just, I don't think it's just an editorial comment. Rashi, I think, is forced to it because he wants you to understand the difference in hora as being Gemara and just the mitzvah, which is the Mishnah. But in any case, in Rashi, we see what he says for Gemara is, which I think is what I kind of said it is the rationale and the svar, the logic behind the Mishnayos and its rulings. So the Gemara had to say for itself that these different things were all taught in Har Sinai, and therefore the Memra ends up. Melamed, this teaches you, Shekulam, all these things, the Luchos, the 10 Commandments, it's called them, and the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, they call it Mikra here, and the Mishnah, and the Nach, and the Gemara, we're all Shekulam Nasnu, the Moshe Misinai. were all given to Moshe Har Sinai. That's the drasha. It's about later over time, and tomorrow we go back now to Kriya Shema Mikvah.
How is that supposed to be understood? Ulam Sinai means, according to some, they say the last 8 psukim of
there's a discussion in Masechtas Gittin what the last 8 psukim. It's Brachot. Either Moshe or Rabbeinu wrote it, or Yoshua wrote it. That's a whole question. Yeah.